Hello, my name's Andrew Brooks. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, we're going to be looking at what I consider to be John Lennon's most underrated and probably the most forgotten about album. Hello, and thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. First of all, big thank you, big hello, big thumbs up to all the new subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, all you have to do is just click this button down here, tap the bell, and you'll hear of any new videos of mine that I put out. And it's absolutely free to do. So please, please, please do. Okay, this video, as I explained in the intro, we're going to be looking at what I consider to be a sort of underrated and probably forgotten John Lennon album. When I say album, it never actually came out on vinyl. It only came out on CD. So we're going to be looking at this. It is John Lennon Double Fantasy stripped down. Now, I don't know if people haven't heard of this or have just dismissed it. For me, I loved Double Fantasy when it came out in 1980, and for all you Yoko bashers, haters out there, this is not the place for that. Okay, I fully appreciate she's not everyone's cup of tea, but hey, I quite like some of her stuff, and I would probably say Double Fantasy is her, for me anyway, most listenable album. So if you're a Yoko hater or a Yoko basher, don't bother putting a comment down below. Keep it to yourself, or put it on someone else's channel. Enough of that. I really like Double Fantasy, and as I say, I have done since it came out in 1980. So anyway, here's Double Fantasy as it originally was. And it is basically a Yoko Ono and John Lennon collaboration album, and sort of, each track is an alternate one. John Lennon, Yoko Ono, John Lennon, Yoko Ono. And for me, I really enjoy hearing it. I know it's from 1980, but it kind of sounds almost contemporary to this day. The guitar work on it is extraordinary. The songs, I love the vocals from John, and I even like Yoko songs as well. But one thing you've got to remember is if you do skip the Yoko tracks, you're missing out on some guitar work by John, as well as some backing vocals. So what's this stripped down malarkey, I can hear you asking? Basically, it's, as it says, does what it says on the tin. It's stripped down. And, we're kind of in the same territory now with other releases. Probably one of the most famous ones we've got is Let It Be Naked. And it's called Naked because it's Let It Be minus all the overdubs that were added on. And it was how they originally wanted it to hear. And that's probably a little bit different to the Lennon Double Fantasy one, because obviously he wanted it to hear how it came out. We never had that luxury with Let It Be because it got overdubbed with Phil Spector, etc., etc. Probably the nearest we've got to it is the Glyn Johns mix, which obviously was sort of like the early version of Let It Be before Phil Spector got his hands on. So, as I said, stripped down Double Fantasy. It does come in this sort of cardboard case, and it doesn't look very substantial. It opens up into a sort of trifold sleeve. Excuse me, there we are. Usual pictures of John and Yoko. There's one I hadn't seen before on the back cover. It's very nice. But the front cover is like, pencil line drawings, as well as on the back cover. Now, the good thing about this is not only do you get the stripped down version, it's 2 discs. So you get the stripped down version on 1 disc and the original album on the 2nd disc. So you're not missing out. And this is what I always say when people say they don't like the new mix of I'm the Walrus or whatever from Giles Martin. Hey, it's fine. You don't have to like the new Giles Martin mix. You don't have to like the stripped down version. Jack Douglas and Sean sort of went back into the studio with the master tapes. The originals are not going anywhere. So if you prefer George Martin's version of I'm the Walrus, listen to it. On I don't know, Magical Mystery Tour or the Blue Album or whatever, however you normally listen to it. But we've also got a bonus of a new Giles Martin mix from last year, where you can now hear different things, and that's essentially what you hear on here. So you get the fabulous Double Fantasy album, but literally stripped back to the bare bones. So another one that was similar to this that came out, I guess you could say, was the Band on the Run mix that came out, the underdubbed mix as it was called. Again, probably a slightly different scenario to the Lennon one, because they were rough mixes done by Jeff Emerick before the album was finished, whereas this, obviously the album was finished, put out, and now it's retrospectively gone back to be stripped down. As I said, I really like the songs on here, but to hear minus all the overdubs, you're really hearing some extra bits and bobs. You can hear John whispering extra lines in the song, which normally would have either been faded out or covered up with other instruments. There's a little bit of talking in between some tracks, like at the end of one track or at the beginning of another, and there'll be a little bit of talking from John, which is great. So give it a chance if you haven't already got this album. Give it a chance. It does come, I meant to show you, it does come with a very nice little booklet here, and it's included in it are some drawings and some more photos inside. There's some great photos of John in 1980 before the tragedy. So yeah, and as he says inside here, 30 years has passed, and in 2010, the year of Lennon's 70th birthday, Yoko was so happy to know that EMI was planning a big tribute to John, and she wanted to do something very powerful to embrace the project. Stripped down, she heard, was what musicians were doing now, and that was right up John's alley. So I asked Jack Douglas, the co-producer of the original album, to join me to make this edition. So both Jack and I were the closest people to John when we were making the original album, and I'm sure John's sudden passing was painful for Jack too. So there we are. Now, we know for sure that there was 5 years between Lennon's last recording output and Double Fantasy, and the story is he heard McCartney's Coming Up and liked it so much that it sort of inspired him to get back in the studio. That's not to say that he hadn't been working in those 5 years, and we know for sure that he was laying down basic sort of demos on cassette. Some of these demo tracks featured quite heavily in the Lost Lennon tape series of radio shows and bootlegs. So here's some of the bootlegs, and as you can see from the track listing on even on this one, we've got some outtakes and demos from Double Fantasy. You've got Watching the Wheels, Stepping Out, Clean Up Time, Woman, and some of these are just the rough piano demos. This one has got Starting Over, studio booth recording. So you can see why there was such a rich sort of gold mine of material there, which they could easily extract out. I mean, some of the guitar work, they've got the two guys from Cheap Trick helping out on some of the tracks, and the guitar work is just phenomenal. The vocals are lovely. Lennon apparently hated his vocal and often double track, and some of these, the double track has been taken off, and you just hear his pure voice along with just the pure instruments minus the overdubs and the extra stuff that gets put on later releases. And going back to those cassettes, the demo cassettes, if he hadn't have done those cassettes in the sort of the 5 years in between recordings right up to 1980, we wouldn't have had Now and Then, Real Love, Free as a Bird, because they were all taken from the recordings that he did within the Dakota building on his little piano on a cassette deck. So thank the Lord that he was still working, even though there wasn't the actual physical output. One interesting note about the original Double Fantasy was when it came out, there was it didn't get a very good critical response. It didn't do very well in the charts. But then obviously, only a few weeks after its release, we then had the tragedy of John being killed in New York. And after that, it just, went shooting up the charts. And I even believe it got Album of the Year Grammy in 1981. So really, it is a great album. If you haven't heard it, you need to check it out. And certainly if you haven't heard the stripped down version, you need to check it out. Anyway, that's enough from me. I heartily recommend that you get a copy of this CD. And if you can't get a copy of the CD, it is on Spotify. Let me know what you think to it. As I said, I really love it. I think it's great to hear John's sort of, vocal in its normal state without all the extra tricks. And I have to say, I probably play the stripped down version more than the original one now. Back in the 80s, obviously I was just playing the standard one because that's all we had. This came out in 2010, and so I now listen to this version probably more than I do the regular one. And I sorry to admit, I'm not probably John's the biggest fan of John, and I very rarely play any of his albums apart from Double Fantasy. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.